the AI was able to assist our intake personnel with uncovering really shocking things about the patient. One of them is a patient I've known for years, and it was able to identify daily spousal abuse, okay? And which is shocking to me and my staff because we know them well, right? So on the outside, things look really good. And it's able to do that because it's able to assess tone, is able to assess wording, and things seemed a little bit suspicious with AI, so it prompted our intake personnel to ask very specific questions.
Welcome to the Thrive Podcast, where we dive deep into tech entrepreneurship and strategic growth. I'm your host, Bill Potter, founder of Thrive Advisors, and I'm here to guide tech-led founders through the maze of challenges on their journey to maximizing enterprise valuations. Whether it's scaling your team, navigating market shifts, or unlocking new revenue streams, we'll explore actionable strategies and insights to help you thrive in today's competitive landscape. Join me as we uncover the secrets to strategic growth and success in tech startups. Get ready to explore the cutting-edge intersection of healthcare and artificial intelligence with our distinguished guest, Dr. Cheng Ruan, renowned for his integrative medicine and business strategies expertise. Dr. Ruan founded the Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine with a passion for leveraging technology to revolutionize healthcare. Dr. Ruan has become a leading authority in AI-driven healthcare innovation. Welcome, Dr. Ruan, to our Thrive podcast. What inspired your interest in the intersection of healthcare and artificial intelligence?
Yeah, good question. This is the most common question I get asked because as an MD, it's kind of rare to dive into the tech side. But first of all, thank you for having me on.
Oh,
and
my pleasure.
I'm truly honored to be here. And this is going to be a great conversation because, when I started Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine, I had to change a paradigm because the average face-to-face time in primary care back in 2017 was just over 7.5 minutes between doctor and patient. I mean, what can you really get done, right?
Not much.
That's called transactional medicine. You're here, I'll give you a prescription for a procedure, a medication, or some therapy, et cetera, right? And so the transactional medication is a bit out of date. And I think that we have to shift from transactional medicine to transformational medicine. So in order to do that, we have to standardize an approach. And this approach hasn't really been done within medical insurance in the United States, right? And so there was a lack of education that I had on understanding the insurance and business landscape. I learned real quickly because 6 weeks after I opened my practice, we had a gigantic flood in Hurricane Harvey. And that I had to go dig deep to kind of change what I was doing and also decreasing the burn rate for my company as a startup, 6 weeks into startup, right? And so that's when we started leveraging technology and utilizing telemedicine and getting people on board. So we really had to think outside the box. But to do that, systems were created that did not exist yet at the time. Now there's tech startups doing all sorts of stuff that I was doing back in the day with AI. So at that time, I taught myself RPA, robotic process automation, using different tools. And I had enough understanding to build a team, build a tech team around it. Long story short, that was great, but it was expensive to maintain. So that turned into discovery of other tech platforms. And now with the launch of OpenAI, and Microsoft and all these great tools we have right now, it's actually really easy to do if we kind of think differently. But it really came out of necessity, right? And it came out of hardship, came out of almost filing for bankruptcy, came out of losing my house in the flood at the same time starting my own business, right? A lot of tears, a lot of relationship discussions with my wife, but ultimately, and the story turned out to be a sort of a Cinderella story, which is really nice.
That's great. So explain to us how AI revolutionizes, you mentioned not only just healthcare practices, but also patient outcomes, because you've gone from transactional to transformative.
Yeah. Let me kind of give a bigger picture of AI before we get into healthcare.
Right.
Like most people think AI is a tool. AI is not a tool. That's not what it does. AI can turn us into amazing people with the ability to execute. And so most people go into ChatGPT and they say, hey, write me a blog on X, Y, and Z. Well, that's cute. But the reality is that we have to see the ability for artificial intelligence to provide us guiding questions. So the quality of the questions we ask the AI has to be much higher, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of hey, write me a landing page for our website, you can ask higher quality question is, I feel stressed, I feel burnt out, I have spending so much money on the business, I really require some sort of change in my business and marketing, right? That's a higher level question. Mm-hmm. Even above that, you can say that, hey, you know what? This is me, here's my value systems, and I'm trying to do the right thing, and I'm feeling really burnt out. What should I do? And you input the things that you do. So it becomes sort of the guiding vessel, if you will, mm-hmm. right? And so, but in order to do that, we have to program to AI our own value systems, which requires a lot of thought process, some spirituality, and as well as the ability for us to recognize faults and then put it out into the open. And as well as I do, for a lot of startup companies, a lot of the failure or success of startup companies is like 80% based on the psychology of the founder, right? Mm-hmm. Right?
Absolutely.
We know that, right? And if there's not enough sort of emotional maturity to think about certain things, like you can really start running down really fast down a one-way street, the opposite direction of where you wanted to come, right? And it starts burning down. So healthcare is exactly what that is. Most people get into healthcare to do one thing, but they find themselves running down the one-way street the opposite direction, like do not enter, right?
Right.
And they're stuck, right? And they're stuck. So a lot of technology has been developed to kind of hurdle that, right? But it's been piecemealed together really, really poorly, all right? And that's what the start of like electronic medical records are and stuff like that. But electronic medical records are the number 3 cause for physician burnout in the United States based on the most recent survey by Medscape, right? And so AI is the first technology that reduces burnout, but also it makes us think about the true practice of medicine from transaction to transformational. So I'll give you an example. Anybody can go to any city in the United States and go to church on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Right? Or go to temple, correct. Right? And you go in there and immediately you're at peace, right? That is like the sanctuary, the haven, mm-hmm. right? Why doesn't that exist in medical practices? You go into a doctor's office, you're not at peace at all. Mm-hmm. You're like, crap, and it's because people wait for something wrong to occur until that occurs. So in Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine, over the last 7 years, we developed a different type of value prop. And during Hurricane Harvey, I reimagined Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine as having the value prop of similar to a church or a temple. It's a safe haven. So mm-hmm. we built rooms for group discussions, kind of like the YMCA. And we built business and processes around it that's now reimbursable by insurance. So we can have disease state cohorts and people who are having really rare diseases and they have nowhere to turn to. Mm-hmm. Like we hold them in there, in that mm-hmm. space. And we do on like Zoom groups as well as in person. And we started doing some of the holistic stuff that has been published to improve health, like mindfulness meditation, breath work, right? Tai Chi, Qigong, and plus many other things, right? And so it allows my creative brain to become the artist that I really am. As an entrepreneur, I am the artist in the entrepreneurship to create these systems. But then now I have the formula to put it within like medical insurance systems. So that's transactional medicine because people are coming not because of me, the doctor. They're coming so they can have access to the cohort, to the group. It's like a mastermind, right?
Absolutely.
And I tell my team, like, if patients are in our waiting room and they're not smiling or excited to see us, like we're screwing up, right? And so when people do come in, actually they're not really in the waiting room that long because they go directly to the back. But when they do come in, it's always like, oh, I'm excited. I'm here to explore. So they don't come in with a sense of lack anymore, right? Into the medical facility. They come in with a sense of curiosity and what could be better. And here's the most interesting part. These people are extremely ill. So we have what's called a high RAF index, which is the risk adjusted factor, which is a number that insurance companies use to show how sick a patient is. So we have the sickest population in our facility, right? So these are not like the biohacker wellness community. These are really, really sick chronic conditions that they have nowhere else to kind of turn to, right? And so, but it's beautiful to see them change. And honestly, a lot of their metamorphosis comes from conversation in the group. So we allow the group to induce the healing process. Once again, transformational, not just transactional, right?
Right.
And we get AI to help us develop programs based on the feedback. We get AI to analyze the data of the feedback. We get AI to help us with marketing material, with blogs and stuff like that. And more importantly, we get AI to let me know, why did insurance deny this claim? Yeah.
Really?
By using specific algorithms to let us know what the insurance policy is versus what we're actually documenting. Where do they not match up? How should we document it in the future? This used to be guesswork, right?
So it's both therapeutic for the patients, but also business side of running your practice with the insurance companies.
Yes, therapeutic for the doctors.
Well,
and for the administrative staff, right? Exactly. And the more important part is the people that work within the AI-capable organization has the ability to retrieve data, has the ability to utilize the AI, so their services could be elevated as well, right? Because imagine this, right? Let's say you go to or before you go to the doctor's office, you call to make an appointment, and you're talking to, perhaps it's a virtual assistant on the phone, and you're saying, hey, what's this doctor like? Like, I have a lot of fears and trepidation, I just want to see what other people's experiences. What if the AI is listening to the conversation and then creating this output to assist with whoever's on the phone, right? To date, we've helped 16,789 patients in their healthcare journey. Here's our outcomes, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of like feeding information for whoever the virtual assistant is, right? And then what if the AI knows the availability of the doctor because it's able to retrieve information from the electronic medical record, right? And what if when you actually come to the doctor's office, you can have an AI say, hey, I'm lost. Where am I? I was like, okay, well, here's a GPS and here's where I am, and make sure you come to the right place. What if you come into the doctor's office and you spend 30 minutes with the doctor and it's really, really complex. You're like, I don't know what the hell the doctor said, but I'll do it. The AI is like, it's okay. Well, here is a discussion for you.
Very simple.
Yeah.
Directions.
We discuss X, Y, and Z. Here are the action items. What if the AI is able to create reminders for our team to reach out to the patient a week later and say, hey, is everything okay with that visit? How did you find it? Et cetera, et cetera. They have more questions. And you have an AI-enabled team to help with that as well through a coaching process, right? Most people don't understand this entire sequence is all reimbursable by medical insurance once the doctor is able to bill out the right codes for that. And what if the AI is able to recognize what's done and actually suggest the right codes for the doctors? Whew.
That's significant.
Yeah.
What's fascinating to me is that you have looked at your entire practice, both from a therapy standpoint as well as from a business standpoint.
Right.
What do you see the future? Obviously you've integrated this in practically every area of your practice.
Yeah.
Do you see being able to take this to other practices?
Oh, yeah.
That's the long-term vision, is scaling it
short-term
beyond your own.
vision.
Well, short-term.
There's, talking about SaaS companies, right?
Right.
The SaaS world is shifted dramatically with technology. Microsoft launched their Azure AI Studio and Copilot Studio, so anybody without coding knowledge can go in and build their perfect machine, right? And so, and this could be from a high school student, or actually even my 9-year-old knows how to use that now, to someone like myself who's very much into tech. We're the last generation of healthcare professionals to practice medicine without AI. We're the last generation. in about 2 years, it's going to be the standard of care for when you go to the doctor's office. They're going to look you in the eye because they're not going to be typing. Like right now, if you come to my office, like we're looking in your eye because we're not typing because AI is typing it for us, right?
Right.
And like that's because that's already happened. In 2 years, it's going to be the standard of care. So what happens then is that, and this is my advice for tech companies that are out there, you have to plan for the future. You can't solve the current problems right now because the problems will be very different. And you have to imagine that everyone becomes AI enhanced or AI capable, right? Mm-hmm. And so the ability to deliver software as a service to the public really depends on like what is the higher level question you're trying to ask. And so I'll give you a really good example. There's AI companies that just do claim denial analysis. Why did your procedure get denied if you have a surgical center or something like that, right? I mean, I can create that in 20 minutes on OpenAI and ChatGPT bot right now. In fact, I did. It's called the Medical Knowledge Database, right? I created it for my company, right?
Right.
And it's able to absorb like Blue Cross Blue Shield claims, United claims. Like it's like Legos now, right? And so as a SaaS company, if you're thinking, oh, I can build this and I'll exit in 3 to 5 years. Well, 3 to 5 years, it's going to be so out of date, right?
Yes. And
you got to be real careful about the greater question you're trying to answer, right? But yes, this can be rolled out and it shall be. And I think that we have to really just ask higher quality questions.
Well, specifically in healthcare, HIPAA is always important compliance. How do you address privacy and data security? Because a lot of people that are using the free versions of, say, ChatGPT, that's you're feeding information into a large language model. How do you deal with that?
I'll tell you, when I started, I downloaded open source large language models locally onto our hardware. Mm-hmm. Behind a firewall. So the way we use large language models is very HIPAA compliant because it's nothing more secure than an actual local model on the computer. I have a laptop outside that door right now with 2 large language models, right? With a hard drive. And so that, if you got to be a little tech savvy, you want to do that. You can't do that with ChatGPT because it's OpenAI, right? Right. But hey, now you have Microsoft. You have Microsoft Copilot, which had 2 commercials on the Super Bowl, which blew my mind. So Copilot is utilizing GPT-4 technology, but siloed within Microsoft, and you can have a Microsoft Enterprise plan, and that data does not get learned on by OpenAI. So I mean, if you were to have this conversation a year ago, I'll be like, I don't know, but now it's like really easy. Right? Microsoft is ahead of the game. Now, I'm sure Google Gemini and other platforms are going to have something that's similar in AWS and stuff like that. But right now, you can easily do that within Microsoft. So I recommend people do it within Microsoft so it's secure data, right? Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of AI outputs itself is not HIPAA compliant, but it's private data. So the people who are putting in information better leave out PHI, which is the protected health data information, right? So patient name, demographics, et cetera, unless you have a local large language model, which requires some little tech play there. But with Microsoft, that's what Microsoft like solutions is designed to do. Like Microsoft, you have HIPAA compliant data, and everything you do within the Microsoft 365, you're able to keep it within HIPAA compliance. Right. So that's the beauty of it. Like today, like right now, right. But HIPAA becomes a big issue because I'm in physician LinkedIn groups where they're saying, hey, this I'm using AI to figure out like diagnoses and they're like challenging the AI's ability, but they're using like GPT 3.5, and I'm like, well, you should not be putting data into there.
Absolutely not.
No way, right? Unless you get an enterprise account with OpenAI or do it through Microsoft. So that's my big warning for entrepreneurs in this field. You got to be real careful.
You were talking about how many of your patients have severe illnesses. Yeah. And what I'd like to know is, if you could share any case studies or success stories of how AI has significantly impacted their patient care.
There's a lot, but one comes to mind, and it's personal too. And I get a little emotional when I talk about it, but it's in the field of mental health. I think that like right now, out of the box, like ChatGPT has the ability to assess tone, assess sentiment analysis, right? And it's able to create new KPIs for our patient outcomes based on patient reception of knowledge. So if I'm counseling a patient and the patients don't feel like they're receiving the knowledge or having rejection in it, right? The AI is able to assess that patient tone and give a score. Are they receiving it? Like a tonal analysis, right?
Fascinating.
Brand new KPIs, right? And these KPIs, because they're standardized, because it's within the overall large language models, you can create new publications that's kind of based on that. So I'll tell you a story. There's a company, Intuitive Mental Health, that is a startup that I'm involved in with one of my great friends, Dr. Ravi Hara Prasad. He's an MD, MPH, also an engineer, a tech engineer, and he develops really high-level AI technology within Microsoft, right? And from a psychiatrist and engineer standpoint, we wanted to solve the greater question is how are we able to use technology to assess people? And that will reduce the amount of bad outcomes, specifically suicide, which is becoming rampant these days. And so we deployed this initial version of the technology onto the practice, and this was October of 2023, which at that time is still a baby. Now it's far more developed. But the AI was able to assist our intake personnel with uncovering really shocking things about the patient. One of them is a patient I've known for years, and it was able to identify daily spousal abuse, okay? And which is shocking to me and my staff because we know them well, right? So on the outside, things look really good. And it's able to do that because it's able to assess tone, it's able to assess wording, and things seemed a little bit suspicious with AI, so it prompted our intake personnel to ask very specific questions about her, the relationship, and stuff like that, right? And all of a sudden, we're like, whoa, like, what just happened, right? And so that was, and I felt a bit guilty, as we spend a lot of time with our patients, and we know them really well, but this is something that was kind of hidden. But this is where technology can really prop us up and say, hey, let's talk about the more meaningful questions, right? We have another one that I thought was just mildly depressed, and she actually got flagged for high suicidality. She had a plan, whole 9 yards, had to get her to intensive psychiatric therapy, like quick, right? Otherwise, she's going to do it. Also, not something that we expected at all. And so these are two main cases where we were able to pick up information before they even saw the doctor. This is literally just on the intake, with the intake personnel. Not a clinician, not a doctor, but the AI is able to enhance that conversation at that time, right?
Probably saved your life.
I think we did. And honestly, we were able to step in. Otherwise, they'll be scheduled a week out or 2 weeks out. And we were able to step in like right away and say, hey, let's talk about this conversation real quick, right? And you know what? The patients were grateful because no one really asked them these questions.
They're being heard.
They were being heard.
Yeah.
And this is where the technology becomes super impactful,
I had no idea that it was that the application of AI in such a life-saving, because that's a fascinating case study. But on the other spectrum, in terms of preventative medicine, I mean, I know you're dealing with very ill patients, but are you also involved with being able to detect early disease detection through AI?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, there's a company that's doing it through, it's a startup company that's doing it through the dementia right now. They're able to look at like blood work and outcomes data and questionnaires and put it together into a portfolio to assess for dementia risk. Recently, there's two major blood work that came out that's screening for Alzheimer's dementia. Landmark thing. One's called p-tau, P-tau, and the other one is amyloid 4240. So we're using this, and the AI is able to do a risk assessment for dementia before even people develop symptoms. We're talking about Alzheimer's here.
Fascinating.
And if you get to early enough, like these things, you can bring your risk down to zero. So we developed a whole program around that, especially with people with family history of people with like mother and father with Alzheimer's and stuff like that. That's huge.
That is.
It's massive. And now there's a lot of like concierge practices within like functional medicine that do this, $25,000 6-month protocol, et cetera, et cetera. But like because of AI, we're able to do it through Medicare, and actually we are, our reimbursement on that is actually very, very high because we're saving Medicare tons of money by identifying these things quicker, right?
Well, that's got to be a great feeling that not only are you being able to run it as a profitable business, but imagine the millions of people that you're able to help at that scale.
Well, and here's the other interesting thing. You're able to get AI to analyze, hey, within our patient cohort, what are the things that we're not even thinking about when it comes to like dementia care? For example, your dentist should be very involved in preventing dementia. If you have chronic periodontal disease and different bacteria that's in there, root canals is infected, that is one of the major risk factors for develop these plaques in your brain. Because when like post-mortem, when they cut into the brains, guess what's in there? It's the same bacteria that's actually in the gums, right? And so we're now able to look at the data and say, what does their dental health look like as another KPI for the patients and for the actual program, right? And now we develop dental education programs. I have a YouTube video if people are interested on the dentist's role in brain health, talking about periodontal disease and ADHD in children and Alzheimer's dementia and stuff like that.
I would imagine most people aren't aware of that. Most lay people aren't aware of that connection. I know that
most doctors aren't aware either. So
well, and my dentist told me that years ago is dental health is overall health.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And to medical professionals, I'm not surprised that would be understood, but to your average person that avoids going to the dentist, that's very helpful.
Well, the other thing is even more than dentistry is obstructive sleep apnea. So a lot of patients come to us and they're like, hey, my memory is going south and they're snoring. They're either not diagnosed or they're not using the CPAP or stuff like that. That is the biggest factor in cardiovascular disease, post-COVID syndrome, dementia, et cetera, right? And so now it's easy for us because we can now have this data and the AI analyzes it, gives us statistical mathematics, like on the spot. We used to have to go to an institution, work with a mathematician, trying to figure out what you're trying to do, but the AI can actually say, hey, let's look at this here. So a lot of the data publications that's coming out is a lot of it is AI driven from the origin of the actual data.
I was speaking with an AI specialist, and he had done a presentation about a year ago, and it was, he had just given us a presentation in his PowerPoint. He goes, 6 months ago when I gave the same presentation, the only difference between my deck, that I use the same deck, is the title slide. AI is developing so quickly that within 6 months to a year's time, the advancements are so critical. What are you most excited about in AI healthcare technology that you see coming in the next year?
Yeah, so I think we have to go away from outdated medical guidelines. Medical guidelines are created by larger institutions looking at specific population health data, right? The population health data is kind of useless if one, it's funded by people that have specific interests, and two, if you're running on a large population health data that's 10 years old or more, which most guidelines are. So instead of that, I think the technology is able to look at from a local population health data, hey, what is the Alzheimer's or Parkinson's risk and what are the factors there for this specific zip code in Houston, Texas, right? Like you can get to that granular of a data now, right? And so you're not waiting for guidelines, you're looking at population health. I'll give you another example. In Pasadena and East Houston over here, you have factories that spew out a lot of these biotoxins and stuff like that. And they have associated symptoms with these people, and the development of ADHD in the teenagers are so fast over there, right? And so there's definitely brain health data that we need to analyze. If you look at a really rare form of cancer called mantle cell lymphoma, that's really common in west of Houston, Katy, and beyond, right? Because it's associated with some of the pesticides that spray in the rice fields for over generations, and it's bioaccumulating in multiple generations down in people's bone marrow stuff, right? So now you could look at like environmental and population health data locally by typing in a prompt, right? If the AI is able to learn from the actual data set, which that's becoming easier and easier and easier these days. That's what I'm most excited about.
So from a business standpoint, you're running your health practice, but you're also building these technology companies. And so in terms of funding, the expansion, the research and development, tell me a little bit about that. I mean, it sounds like the insurance companies are responding to better patient outcomes. And
oh, yeah.
What are the barriers to growing a technology company in the healthcare industry?
I think you have to separate it into a couple things. I think everyone kind of goes to market share the minute they think about scaling, right? But even before that, I think we still have to have a problem to solve, because with the power of AI, you can solve multiple problems. Mm-hmm. And what happens is that a lot of people start trying to solve every problem. If you try to solve every problem, one, it may not be scalable. Two, it may not be marketable. And three, your mission-driven values may be compromised in trying to do too many things, to spread too thin, right? So I think we really have to start with like solving like one problem on the table that can have a really big impact. And so when you do that, the funding becomes easier, because the technology lift is actually a lot less. Mm-hmm. The average startup today trying to build a SaaS model, the cost is extraordinarily lower than 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Is because what you have with even non-coding AI engineering models, either within Microsoft or other platforms, right? So I think the first thing to do is to actually have like a chief technology officer or something oversee, and they're going to be looking at the future too, right? Seeing that, hey, is what you're building, is that going to be outdated in 3 months? Because and I'll give you a really interesting examples. So I'm advising for this other company right now. It's actually it's no longer a startup. It's about 10 years old now, and they just under $1 billion now in the value. So one of the things that they were trying to do is they're in acquisition mode, right? Acquiring mm-hmm. IP. Mm-hmm. So the problem is like, and this is maybe a year ago, when I looked at the IP they're trying to acquire, I basically was looking at what the company was what the output was, and I put it into OpenAI and had it reverse engineer the code for it. I'm like, there's like the age of IP really has to be shifted, because like this is what they actually did, right? Mm-hmm. And it took them under 24 hours to realize that they don't really have to acquire the IP, because everything can be reverse engineered when you have the right technology, right?
Right.
And this was literally just on GPT-4, right when GPT-4 came out, right? And so, but the company wasn't really seeing AI as an IP, acquisition, because they've been using it to engineer, not reverse engineer. So a lot of what I do is play around as, oh, this is a cool company. What are they doing? Can I create that within my AI space, right? Mm-hmm. And most of the time is yes. So if you're one of those companies and you're creating a product, and oh my God, I can think of 3 right now. You're creating a product and you think you're doing well in 2024. 2025, it's going to be completely outdated, because you're just going to get crushed. Mm-hmm. And that is the bigger issue right now. And so a lot of companies are trying to create a product and get market share as much as possible. So they can at least get market acquisition, but what are you going to provide the market after you get the market share?
Right.
If it's outdated. Right? So I think I think when technology accelerates the way it is right now, I think that's the biggest danger for a lot of the companies, And now, and I'm sure that, with venture capitalist companies and looking at multiples of investments and returns, like VC companies have to be real careful now of like, hey, is this product still going to be in effect, right? For example, there's a startup company that does dictations between doctors and patients and stuff like that, and it's purely a dictation thing, and and it's behind a HIPAA compliant platform. Well, you're one of 600 that came out in the last year now,
Yes.
right? And now, guess who just came into the game? Zoom. Zoom AI Companion. Zoom is a HIPAA compliant platform, and they're building the HIPAA compliant AI Companion on it. So Zoom is doing everything that you're actually doing, right? And so because you have these large companies that's able to develop things so quickly, you have to really ask a bigger question: am I going to get crushed in the very, very near future, right? What if Amazon or Zoom, or what if Microsoft comes out with whatever feature, and all of a sudden like it's no longer viable? That's a really serious question. Really serious question.
So in terms of the future for you, you both have your medical practice as well as businesses. Where do you see guiding your business career in the coming years?
You know what's interesting? I see everything as one. I don't see things as separate. My medical practice I see as a tech business from the very get-go.
Clearly.
And that's sort of the identity behind it, right? And so the medical practice is great because it is literally the playground where we can deploy programs. Like we're starting like a psychedelic and complex PTSD program that's AI driven also, right? And so it allows healthcare professionals like myself to kind of play around a little bit, right, and see what is the greater picture that we can bring to elevate the consciousness of healthcare. Like my main goal is to raise the consciousness of healthcare. The transactional medicine should be outdated in the next couple of years if we do things right. You should be able to, just like you go to church on Sunday, any city in the U.S., you should be able to go to the doctor's office, come into a group cohort, have a really open discussion about like all the things that you're going through for your health, right? Hospitals has been trying to create this, but no one wants to really come into a hospital to have that discussion. You have outpatient facilities that try to create this, but it doesn't become a viable business model until there are things that we're doing to allow the technology to not just support it, but to be the primary essence of the value proposition of what we're trying to deliver, right? And so I do see things as one. My nonprofit is the Physician Transformation Institute. That one was started a year ago by me and my sister. And our goal is to get healthcare professionals to really put the mask on themselves before someone else, and to also experience transformational medicine or transformation in general, right? So that they actually know what it's like to have a concept of what type of medicine they want to deliver as well. And when they're ready, we have the entire platform to kind of plug them to kind of develop this from an end-to-end system.
It's one way to spread the word.
Yeah, and actually this model works globally, not just within the U.S. It's a global model. And in fact, this is how healthcare was practiced 200 years ago. From 5,000 years ago to just 200 years ago, like what do we call this type of practice? We call them like shamanic healers within the village, right? And they had leaders that were really involved in the way that the community thought and what they do with their health, their eating, their habits, their sleep, right? Like we have that within religious models, right? Like, but what about health? What about health? It's like super left behind. But I think we're finally able to do this, and I've proven that Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine is it's done. It's viable. We're in year number 8 of existence right now, so we're out of that that startup. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen phase, right? Yeah.
Well, this is fascinating. If you wanted to leave a message to these, our audience is oftentimes tech-led founders, and if they wanted to get in touch with you, we're going to give them your contact information. But any parting words of wisdom for our audience?
Yeah, I think there's this concept of thinking bigger that is nice, and I think thinking big and answering the questions that we're trying to solve is really good, right? But one thing that people don't think about is thinking simpler, thinking more essentialistic. So thinking bigger could be, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z and change the world, right? Thinking essentialist is, what is the one lever to pull to have the biggest impact? And what if I have all the technology in the world? And you have to come from it from a magician's point of view. AI is magic. It really is. So if you're a magician, what would that poof be, right? So you have to see yourself as the genie in the bottle, granting wishes for your clients. What is that one wish? You start with that one wish, not 3. You start with that one wish and make it a really simple problem to solve, and then you focus on that. And I say that is because I consult for tech startups, right? And oftentimes they're really trying to solve a million different things, at once, and it's and the problem is you could. But it's usually like one lever you pull, and all of a sudden you're solving 10 million things. But you didn't really think about that one lever to pull, right? And so, for example, for a lot of companies, is you didn't think about the fact that instead of acquiring IP and acquiring companies, like, well, why not just reverse engineer it with AI to have an engineering team that's way cheaper than spending $30 million on acquiring a company, right?
Absolutely.
And spending some money on tech, and then having tech be the actual play. And then now you can really become that magician and sprinkle your fairy dust. You have to determine what the value prop of your fairy dust really is. And this is what's different about AI's thinking than previously, I think.
Well, it certainly opened my eyes. Well, thank you, Dr. Ruan.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning into today's episode of the Thrive Podcast. I hope our discussion with Dr. Ruan was insightful, practical, and applicable to your entrepreneurial journey. If you found value in today's conversation, please like, comment, and subscribe, and share this episode with your fellow entrepreneurs. Your support enables us to continue bringing valuable content to the community. Till next time, keep thriving.